Again, we're back for another lunchtime chat, Molten Live, coming to you directly from the wilds of Norfolk and somewhere out in the Far East, which we'll get to hear about in a little while. But before we go too far, I just want to make sure if there's anybody out there in the chat, can you let us know that you can hear both myself and Peter over here on whatever side this is?
Over on this side.
Yes. Just let us know that you can hear us both, that there's not a strange echo or anything weird going on, and then we can continue. Had a few connection issues, so that might plague us. We'll just have to see how we go. But just give us a thumbs up or a nod in the chat so that we know that we're coming through. So how you doing, Peter? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Nearly at the end of this strange series of chats that I embarked upon just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
It feels like it's my life now, is just doing crazy chats.
Well, they've been pretty interesting, I've got to say, some of them. But hopefully things can get back to normal ASAP, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, it's spurred us into doing things slightly differently, which has had its own rewards, I think. In amongst the horror of what people are experiencing, but from our little part of the world, it's it's done that. Well, the chat's already got weird. I've only got two people in there, and it's already spun out into something a little bit different. Never mind, we'll just go with it. So let me introduce you then. This is Peter Young from Tenderfoot Electronics. Tenderfoot Electronics is a company that I came across, I think it was a couple of years ago. I think. Yeah,
it would have been 2008, I think. I got in touch with you, I think, initially.
Well, that's like 12 years ago. So I would go for 2018 myself.
2018, sorry. Yeah, no, of course.
But you popped up. Yeah, indeed. You popped up somewhere and said, that you had a sequencer. You had a little sequencer. Yeah. 12-note sequencer called the Lattice, which looked interesting. And at the time, I think I was generally open to everything. I still am generally open to anything, and so easily swayed by offers of, would you like to try this out? That wins me over every time. So we started corresponding back then, and you sent me this little thing to try, quite big module to try, and I really enjoyed it. I continue to enjoy it, and since then you've expanded a bit, and in more recent times you've got quite a nice, attractive little range of modules going on, I think. So that's
getting there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's where we've started. So I think where I wanted to start this chat before, we can just laze about into conversation soon enough, which is great. But just to start off with the question that I did have, which was, how did you start making modules?
Oh man, partly out of necessity almost. Like I got into, like, I've always enjoyed making stuff, but I got into modular for making music. Probably, let me get my years right this time, 2016, 2017, something like that. So I've been playing around with them for like 4 years or so. And then it just got obscenely expensive. Like, it eats away all your pocket money, and I was in desperate need of a sequencer. And so I thought, well, like, I wonder if I could just build one for myself. So it started off very basic and very janky, I guess you could say. And then it just grew from there. So it worked, and I used it in my rack, and I kept wanting to make it better and better, kind of incrementally. And that's how it got started, really. Yeah.
So what sort of stuff did you have in your rack then when you felt the need to develop it further?
Oh dear. Was the IntelliJ Atlantis, and that's still by far one of my favorite modules. Like, it's such a nice synth voice. So I had that, and I then bought the Metropolis sequencer to go with it. But I wanted to play around with the second VCO that's on it, and so I needed another sequencer to be able to like make more complex like melodies with the Atlantis. And I bought a few DIY kits, and they were pretty decent, but they were like 8-step sequencers, and they were very linear. And I think I just wanted something that it could be used in slightly different ways. A bit like I guess a René, but I didn't have the money for a René, so I made a a slightly smaller, not quite a knockoff, but like I think I was inspired somewhat by the way that you can navigate both on the X and Y axis of the René.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what led me to like actually need another sequencer. And then it's just been utilities. Like I've really been focusing on building utilities and stuff like that, as opposed to trying to make voices yet. That's the next endeavor, is to try and actually make stuff that makes. But yeah, no, it was just getting far too expensive buying other manufacturers' stuff. Like I'd already filled up 2 like 6U 104 HP cases, and I was like, this is too much. If my place ever burns down, knock on wood, I'm going to lose far too much.
Yeah. But synth voices are difficult though. And the other thing I would say is that we tend to have those because they're the things that we go for first. Something that makes a noise, and actually all the crafting of that sound comes from everything else. I mean, in case people aren't familiar, I do have your web page up here that I think I can. 1 second. That's going to kill everything, isn't it? 1 second. Let's do that. Sorry, I think that might have killed the audio. Just give me a second while I think about that. That should it? I can't remember. Anyway, I will just briefly show this webpage. We'll assume that no one can hear us, and I'll just give people an idea of what is in your range. Which are these modules here. You're a bit out of stock at the moment, it has to be said. Sequencer, Quantizer, other bits and pieces down there. Let me bring this back in before I lose my brain. So, well, people can go and look that up on, where is it? Tenderfootelectronics.com, is that right?
Yeah, tenderfootelectronics.com, yeah. There will be more stuff in stock soon. It's just, it's been a pretty hectic few months, as I think everybody knows.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, just to kick off with the sequencer, the Lattice, because this is the one that you showed to me. I mean, I was at the time struggling to find, well, I still am on this journey trying to find ways to make things happen and to control stuff, and just the simple things of having a sequence is gets remarkably complex really quickly. I mean, I've had things, or I do have things like the Analog Solutions generator, which is a lovely desktop long thing with lots of knobs on it that you've got a lot of control over. That is great in many respects, but also can overwhelm you, I think. I've got things like the Varigate 4 Plus, which is a cute little sequencer and gate module, but also one that can quickly frustrate you because you can just hit a menu, hit the wrong menu button and move a slider, and you're moving the wrong thing, and you've completely changed either the scale or the length of the pattern or something that you never intended to. So I find that I mean, funnily enough, I'm finding it more useful these days. I think I've got the hang of it better, but to start with, it would drive me nuts. I was forever putting things into the wrong place. With what else did I have in terms of sequencing? Well, I had a BeatStep Pro, and that drove me completely nuts, so I got rid of that quite quickly. So as you can tell, I'm quite fussy with the sort of sequencing that I was finding, and I would see things like the Metropolis and go, oh yeah, no, maybe that's the one, or other bits and pieces, and wonder about it. But then when the Lattice came along, it's just 12 knobs. I mean, I know there's some fiddly stuff at the top, but there's just 12 knobs, and with it I can dial in 12 notes, and that was a simple, not overly wide, it's quite compact in space, and it just created 12 notes, and that was beautiful. I thought that was an extraordinary thing. The simplicity of it, the build was nice, and knobs were nice too, and it just did 12 steps. And the funny thing about 12 steps was, I had an online argument with someone about this, who said, well, you don't need 12 steps, mate, why don't you just have 8 steps or 16 steps? Well, the funny thing about 12 is that it works. It just works differently, because you're suddenly finding yourself not repeating every 4 bars or every 8 bars or whatever. You're repeating every 6 bars or something, and that just gives a completely different vibe to how the thing rotates. And of course you can also pare it back so it resets sooner than that, but there's something in the 12 notes that I found really, really interesting, that just engaged me more than I had been in a sequencer before. And then of course you've got some clever little bits that let it run either horizontally or vertically, so you've also got 3 notes and 4 notes. And I've discovered that the 4-note sequence is also an awesome thing. And not only do you have that potential in this very simple module, but you have 3 lots of 4 notes, so I suddenly have 3 sequences that I can call upon just by knocking it across one. Or 4 3-note, but I'm not hardcore enough for 3-note sequences. But for the 4-note ones, having 3 of those was again just a brilliant, simple, and releasing idea, I think.
Okay.
So were you planning? Was your design brief to sort of boggle my mind and release me from the burden of sequencing? Was that where it came from?
To a point, I did want to keep it really simple, which is why it is just 1 knob per step for the control voltage, and how many, 5 jacks at the top. Just had to look at one to double check. And initially I'd been using, I had a sequencer that was either a 5 or a 3-step sequencer. And I was using that a lot, and I wanted to make something that I could use as like 4 banks of 3-step sequences, basically. So you could do like 3-note arpeggiations, and switch between like 4 of those, and then go back to the first one. So I didn't want to make it like a 4x4 grid purely so it was easier to play around with stuff. Putting together to make 12 steps out of the 12 knobs was kind of like not necessarily an afterthought, but it was a pleasant discovery afterwards, because the initial plan was to have like either 4 lots of 3 or 3 lots of 4, but then I was like, 12 is pretty fun as well. But no, I've had a lot of people also say 12 is a weird number, and it doesn't work for everything. Like there's been numerous times where I've wished I'd added 4 extra knobs, but then just to make it a 16-step sequencer. But I quite enjoy it for what it is. And yeah, I may be working on a 16-step sequencer in the near future anyway, so like I can always make up for that at a later date, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean it just gives it a different vibe somehow. As I say, that to loop every 12 notes is just slightly different. I mean, the other thing that it pushed me into was the use, because I was trying to find, I think at the time I was trying to find verse chorus structures. How do I create that in this? Because I got this wonderful machine which has all sorts of potential and possibilities, but I'm just kind of doing the same thing, and then it's rotating and I'm doing the same thing. How on earth do I change key, change chord? Do I move from one movement to another? And that gave me a possibility. Now the other thing that then happened is somewhat, I can't remember if this is on purpose, but I ended up with another one. I think, that's right, because you were sending me I might have that here.
Ooh, sorry, I totally.
I've got it in my box of sinfulness over here. You were suggesting that I tried out a cells, which is this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And if you can see, this also represents the 12 knobs you had on the lattice. And the idea of this was that you could actually play it like a playable thing, like an instrument. And it gave some other possibilities of these jacks as well. But unfortunately, the original one that you sent me wasn't compatible with it, so you sent me another one, which was brilliant. So, but what I mean by that is, I mean, this is good. I don't have room for it, kind of thing, and it's like I get it, but I don't know. It's not really working for me at the minute. But having two lattices, what that did for me was I was able to clock one very, very slowly, and have one of them run the key changes of the other one. That makes sense. Can't remember what I was doing now. But I was using one to switch the timing so that I had my 4 notes and in a bank of 3, and then the other one was switching those across. Is that right? It doesn't sound as good now. I think it that way around.
You could use a second one as to create like an offset, I guess, if you mix the CVs together. So
I think that's what I'm doing, and that's what it does a lot. I mean, I have at least one of them in my. Do I have both? I do have both. I have both in my rack, very far apart, funnily enough, and they always come in for doing something, either very slowly to move something else, as you say, to offset something else.
Sorry, I'm having a few audio issues.
Yeah. Okay. Are you still with me then?
Okay, I think we're back. Yeah, okay. I think we're still sorry.
Yeah.
This Taiwanese internet.
So I use the. I either use it to offset, as you say, to change things at a very slow rate, or it just bumps out some tunes. And that's been great. They're incredibly useful because they're just there. You don't have to worry about. I'm not having to try to find a menu, not trying to switch between anything or make sure it's set to anything. I can just send it a clock and set it going. And brilliant. Works for me. Without any doubt.
I'm glad you enjoy them.
Yeah. But your work is all is essentially digital based. Do you have a?
Yeah, there's a few analog. Quite a few analog modules that I've made, but a lot of the bigger ones are all like digital modules. So the analog ones are like I've got a VCA that I'm doing the buffered multiple, of course, like pretty simple utilities. And then a comparator, and hopefully I'm working on a filter at the moment, but it's tricky to make something that just isn't either a copy and still has its own like sound. So that might take a while. We'll see.
Yeah. Are you trying to find sort of different features that haven't been used before?
Not so much. Like in a lot of my modules, I like to keep it as simple as possible. Really, I mean, it's nice to add CV to any kind of input or like parameter, but for me, I like one module to do a specific task, I guess, in some ways. So I'm not trying to add too many features into anything that I'm designing right now, because that's how I work, especially when I'm using a modular. I have some modules with very deep menu systems, plunge the depths of the menu. Like it's I've had an IntelliGel shapeshifter for about a year or so, probably just over a year. Yeah, actually 2 years now. And I'm only just starting to get to grips with some of the features of that. So no, like the filter that I'm working on it's going to be just a state variable filter with a band pass, low pass, high pass, maybe a notch, and very standard, I think, but hopefully with an interesting enough sound to it that it will at least satisfy me.
Well, that's where you got to start. That's got to be your starting point, hasn't it?
And then if other people, oh, hello,
Oh, yeah, you're back.
am I still there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
What about a stereo filter then? That seems to be the key module for Superbooth this year.
Yeah. See, I've never made a stereo patch. Like even the stereo, yeah, even like maybe that's just yeah, it shows how terrible my music is. But yeah, even some of the modules that have stereo outputs, I always just pretty much just use the mono output at the moment. So yeah, and if you need stereo, buy two filters. I don't know, and patch them in that way.
Yeah, I mean,
have them
inevitably.
doing different things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it's not on the top of my list. I'll yeah, it's interesting to see what other manufacturers are doing though. But yeah, and also I just bought a ton of mono jacks, so I got a big shipment of those. So buying stereo jacks now is it's not an option.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was having this conversation with somebody else about how perhaps the secret to stereo in modular is to start adopting the stereo jack as a
Yeah, it
format,
could
as
be.
a standard, and
Yeah,
then which can always be, I don't know, defaulting to the left side so you can still use mono jacks in it, or something of
yeah.
that nature. But all it really means to me is that I'm going to have to double up on everything, which just sounds expensive in modules,
Are shifting
expensive
to
in
stereo.
width. Mm. It's the
Yeah,
same with polyphony. Was an interesting idea last year? I was very much focused on, I must try to get to polyphony at some point. I need a polyphonic
within
oscillators
within
and
one module, or
well, Dopefer was releasing a bunch of a
oh,
polyphonic
okay,
range,
yeah, I
and
remember
so
that
there
actually,
were
but
lots of quad stuff built into single modules, which did raise possibilities, although it did make everything a bit crowded.
yeah.
Lots of patch cable tangles, I think. But yeah, but I didn't ever take the plunge, funnily enough, and I don't think that's important particularly.
Yeah, audio keeps cutting out. There we go, we're back. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's always at the worst moment as well. Yeah, for me, like especially when it comes to building a patch, um, I don't know if I can think smartly enough to do polyphony there and then. Like it's something you can always patch multiple voices together,
Mm.
but yeah, I'm not very good at planning. Like when it comes to building a patch, kind of where it takes you, which is what the fun thing about modular is for me. Like I spent years using Ableton, and before that, like FL Studio and like
Right.
various other bits of software, where you you can improvise a little bit with some of those. But I got into modular purely because it was a way to make music that didn't sound half bad by just messing around, which I think is the appeal. like,
Yeah, yeah.
like
But I
you
think
end up
that's
sculpting it as opposed to, or at least that, yeah. There's that. Don't get me wrong. There's an awful lot of people out there very methodical when it comes to building a patch.
yes.
I'm just not one of those people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it also indicates how low our bar is in terms of
Yeah.
what sort of music we accept from the blippy bloppy noise making modular crowd. We're happy with
Yeah.
anything. So it seems anything which makes any
Yeah.
noise.
Yeah. Of course.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, we're frozen again.
that's all
Hopefully
right.
this isn't. There we go. Yeah. Sorry.
So you're out in Taiwan, then, as I understand it, who
Yeah. Yeah.
have terrible
Mhm.
internet. What took you out there? Was it the modular business that took you out there, or was it completely
No,
irrelevant?
no. I came out here to. I was teaching English originally, and then got into buying modular from a big shop here in Taipei. And money. So, so yeah. no, it was teaching English that brought me out here, and I got into modular purely because yeah, I've always been doing, or at least always been interested in electronic music since I was young, and then made an awful lot of terrible music. I mean, it's still terrible these days, but and then it just kind of evolved. Once I had enough, like, I guess, disposable, to buy a modular system, or at least start building it. You don't. I mean, piece by piece. I definitely started off the budget route. Lots of DIY kits from Thonk as well. Having them shipped over here was always pretty good fun. So yeah, that's what got me into soldering as well. Was the DIY from there.
So how do you go from being an enthusiast of modular into actually designing and building your own module? How does that happen?
That's quite a tricky one. Like, it was a lot of trial and error, I guess. A lot of just reading up on stuff, but also starting really super simply. So just making, I think the first module I made, because I used to, well, I still do from time to time. I've not got quite as much free time, but I was watching a lot of Milo Melody's stuff.
Yes.
And he made a video about switched multiple, and was like, oh, I made this or something. It's easy to DIY, and so I found a schematic and built one of those. And after sorting out some dodgy solder joints, got it working. Yeah, and so it was mostly from videos online of stuff that other people have made, and then really, yeah, just super simple circuits. An awful lot of stuff that just didn't work as well. Like I had some grand like ideas of making this like patch matrix thing that I
Oh, we're having a bit of trouble.
Say about living in Taipei. Are we still there? Am I still here?
We're still here, just about.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. One of the nice things about living in Taipei is there's an awful lot of electronic stores. There's like 2 districts in the city that are all component stores, and it's kind of how. I guess Maplin's used to be before it, I guess, disappeared. But more so. So they do a lot of like basic DIY kits. So I was making a lot of like light up Christmas trees and like little doorbells that for no reason other than just to practice and try to figure stuff out. But also just walking through them, you see a ton of components that can, I guess, kind of inspire you, and you think, oh, what could I use that for? That's it was purely by luck, actually, that I came across the keypads that I turned into cells.
Right. Yeah.
So I'd already designed Lattice, which is of course a 3x4. Like I was walking through one of the stores and just saw like bucket loads of these. And I thought, oh, that's the exact layout of the sequencer that I'd just been working on. So yeah, I'd say it's lucky to kind of accidentally end up here when it comes to electronics stuff. But yeah, it was like learning it. Some of it has been pretty straightforward. There's a lot of resources online that can help you out. Like I had never coded either before I started doing any of this. Yeah, in fact, before I started making modules specifically, I was still playing around with modular, but I wanted to learn more about electronics, and I teach, like, my day job was teaching like really young kids, and so I made just like little electronic toys for them as well, like big roulette things. So you push a button and it spins a light around and it lands on something that like the kids have to say the answer to, or like I made this big ball game as well. So you throw balls into a little hoop thing and it adds up the score. So it was all quite tangential, I guess. Like it didn't quite match up with Eurorack such, but about especially like Arduinos. I think it all, yeah. I think learning to program for an Arduino and how to connect all of that up really allowed me to start building pretty much everything. Like most of the digital modules that I'm making are based off the chip from an Arduino Nano. But yeah, it feels like it happened all by accident though. There's no planning to any of this.
So what sort of level fabrication are you at? Are you churning out, are you involved in factories? Is it all hand soldered ultimately, or how do they come together?
Initially, for the first year, I was doing everything. So I was cooking, well, not everything. I would get the PCBs manufactured in China using one of the big fabrication houses there. Had them sent here, and then I was doing all of the SMD soldering at home. Then upgraded to cooking them on a frying pan, which was working really well. But
well,
then,
like that YouTube video shows the guy who, with the sand and the
exactly like that. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've got a big bag of sand on my balcony.
Yeah, because I have looked at those, having done some surface mount soldering, and thought there's no way I'm going to be starting fires and trying to assume that I can make that work. That just seems crazy.
Yeah, depending on what you're making, either hand soldering SMD can be way faster. Like I think the first SMD thing I made was the Ornaments and Crime, and I had a few issues with the DAC on that because it's pretty small. It's quite fine pitched, but everything else was pretty easy to hand solder. And then I tried Immutable Instruments Clouds build, right. And I am yet to get that working. I think I messed it up too long ago, and it's not a happy little module at the moment. So, but yeah, like all of the pre-soldered by the factories now. So so I figured out how to tell them how to put what where on the PCB, which
right
is pretty straightforward actually once you get used to it. But and so I do all the through-hole soldering here now, which is a lot faster. Like instead of taking a day to make a module, I can make a few a day now, which is a lot better. But
wow, do you see this as, is this full time for you now, or is it just still
it's
an interesting hobby?
It's the plan is to try and make it full time.
Right.
So I go and I teach kids, and then my afternoons and evenings are all like fulfilling orders and stuff like that. I would love to be able to do this full time, and hopefully still enjoy it. That's the thing. Yes. I still do enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. And then we'll see where it goes from there. It's interesting.
Well, let's talk about another one of your modules, which is the...
Okay.
I'm trying to find it now in the glare. Oh, here we go. The Quantizer. Let me see if I can bring that up. for a second, because I should have the ability to do that in my... No, I can't remember. There we go. A bit of that, bit of that. Let's plug... Okay, that. Let me go over there. Hopefully we can both still be heard. The quad quantizer. There we go.
Yeah.
That's the fella. 4 channels of quantizing. Let me tell you why I like it. I mean, I put in an order for this as soon as I saw it, I think, because quantizing is something which I find incredibly useful. I mean, I like to step outside quantizing. I like to be free and easy and all those sorts of microtonal stuff. But also, I like to have notes which are going to be something that I expect them to be. Because and a quantizer me, it's like a time saver. Rather than trying to dial in exactly what I'm trying to do on a sequencer, I can put it near enough and then stick it through a quantizer, and it creates the tune, and that makes me very happy. I've had the micro scale for a long time. That was the first quantizer I got, which is useful. 2 channels, kinda, or at least 2 outputs, I think is more accurate. But it's a fussy interface. There's a lot going on in that space, and I forget how to save it. So every time I'm having to go back and re-put things in. So after that, I then got a Dope quantizer, very simple, which I quite liked, but it's in some ways it's too simple in that I don't have a whole lot of control over exactly what notes it's kicking out. So it is something that I've been trying to find a better solution for, and people would be constantly putting me towards the Ornaments and Crime and saying that's got 4 channels of quantizing in it, or they'd send me towards the disting saying, oh, yeah, got a quantizer in there. And both of those case scenarios to me are like, where you've just got this blank plate, particularly on the O and C, looking at you going ha ha ha, and I'm going, no, it just, there's nothing in that blankness that gives any sense to me of interest or creativity. I mean, that's a personal thing. Other people, I understand, other people get a lot out of the Ornament and Crime, but not I. Well, I mean, I haven't tried one. I just have absolutely no interest in trying one because it doesn't appeal to me on any level that I can find, other than the fact it has a fascinating name. But that's not a reason to spend money, I don't think. We're in.
Yeah, I will say the reason I made my quantizer was I had used an Ornaments and Crime for probably 2 years, and I love it. Like, I think it's, once you figure out the interface, it is a really good quantizer. But again, there was just, it wasn't immediate enough for me. Like, there was a little bit too much menu diving. And for me, if you can put a menu on a knob, I'd rather have the knob.
Oh, I've lost you for...
So, there's one knob for like the key, and then as many outputs as possible and inputs as well, without confusing myself too much.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the there's an ADAC one, the red one.
Yeah.
Milo Melodies has one, which was always on the cards.
Yeah, I know.
But that's expensive.
Yeah.
But I think it's for independent quantizers. It's completely, it has a whole other level to it. And I sort of straight with you about
so you
that
can set the scales.
I believe so, yeah. And I was wondering whether there's actually a situation where that would occur. Would I actually need that? Is that something that would happen, or am I more likely to be using the same scale for multiple things within a patch? And that seemed to be more likely to me. So that didn't seem necessary. There's other things like the Harmonade from Instruo, which is a beautiful looking module and seems to just exude creativity as all their stuff does. But again, it's quite expensive, and I didn't know that I was really looking to make chords, or was I? Oh, I don't know. So anyway, you pop up with your quad quantizer and it's like, bang, that's exactly it. It's just, I can plug 4 things in, I get a scale out, and that's it. That's all I need. And in fact, I haven't really gone very deep with it. I tend to set it to a I don't know, pentonic something or other. See, I'm not very up on the musical terms.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much how I leave it as well.
Yeah, I just leave it on that, pump a bunch of things through, and yeah, it's brilliant. There's the it does have. So I'm trying to get my head around where it's right without actually having it to hand. So you put your sequence in one end, right? Let me just bring this up so I can see the front panel for myself.
And I've got can wave on it if you want.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you've got CV and you've got trigger on the input. On the output, you've got CV and trigger also. So generally speaking, let me just look at mine. Yeah. I mean, I only ever plug a sequence into the CV in and then take the output. Now you've got these other two triggers. So tell us about those other two triggers, just so that I can get my head around it.
The trigger. Let's start with So what? Oh, hello.
Yeah, sorry. Try that again from trigger. Yes, you did. Try that again from trigger.
Trigger. Okay. Okay. So the trigger output changes notes. So it starts giving you a different CV output. It sends a quick pulse output just to trigger an envelope or anything else that you want to trigger. So if you're trying to run an entire voice off it, you can have the quantizer triggering triggering the envelope generator for your VCA or VCF or whatever, as well as giving you the.
And that only changes when the note changes. Is that right?
That only changes when the note changes. Yes, basically, yeah. So when the note changes, you get a trigger output. So if you have the scale set to only one note, then you're not going to get as many triggers out if you're sending an LFO in. If you've got it set to all 12 notes, you get 12 outputs across one octave. The trigger input, I guess it's kind of like the sample input of a sample and hold circuit. So you can send continuous CV into the CV input, and then using the trigger input when you want it.
Okay.
So if you were to send a white noise signal into the CV input, you would get just an awful lot, a ton of just CV coming out of it and triggers coming out of it. But you could sample it with a trigger input once a second, once every 12 seconds, however you wanted it. And it would be a nice steady CV output as opposed to white noise coming out the rear end of it. So those are the trigger inputs and outputs.
Yeah. I mean, I find using the trigger output in particular is useful because it just creates a slightly different rhythm to the sequence. So rather than just having your 12 notes coming from the lattice or whatever, it then gets sounded as 8 notes or it gets sounded as 6 notes depending on how many notes are being changed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that just gives you a different sound, particularly if I'm using the 2HP pluck through it, or if you're using a rings through it, something which has a resonance or even a polyphony to it. It means you get that strike, and then you get a couple of same note tones before you get another strike as it changes. So it's just a really nice little touch which does something slightly different, and I'm always up for those helpful sorts of things. It was an idea that was given to me by a friend over here, actually, because when I was designing the Quantizer, because Taipei has quite a small but close-knit modular community, and so we quite often share ideas and talk about what would be a good idea and what wouldn't be a good idea. And initially, I hadn't thought about the adding a trigger input. I knew I wanted a trigger output of the Quantizer,
But I didn't think to put a trigger input, and then someone suggested it, and there it is. The ability to kind of sample a CV input into it. So yeah, it does.
Yeah. So it's it's the other bits on it I haven't really got into. Oh, I've lost half a light. Never mind. That's not the end of the world. We've got transpose and scale inputs as well, which I've yet to really get into those. I've kind of just it's a module that sits in my rack and just does its thing, as opposed to something I've investigated any deeper yet. I mean, I do plan to do a proper review of it once I've got my a bit of space and time to look at it in some more detail.
Yeah. Oh, hello.
Hello. Are you fading in and out? But I think we have you back again.
Yeah, I think I lost your last sentence on that.
It was, and I can't recommend it's not enough or something. I don't know. It was something like that. No, I'll be doing a review. I'll be doing a review on it as soon as I can find the time to squeeze that in and think about it a little bit more deeply. The scales and things on it. So coming up, you say you've got a VCA you're working on. I can see one here. Is it a 3-channel VCA?
Yep, I've shipped a few of those. I'm having a big old brain fart. Of the module, so you can chain them. So you can chain multiple VCAs together and use it as a mixer as well. So yeah, that's a thing that works and is available. It's got an input, it's got an output, it's got a CV input.
Fair enough.
A level knob, and then exponential or linear response as well on the inputs, which is pretty useful.
Yeah, I mean,
and it can get quite loud and out of control as well. If you turn it up to the top end, you start getting some distortion on it, which is quite fun. And of course, you can rein it back in. It's not something that's only designed to make noise. It's
nice. I mean, they're not that fascinating to talk about as it goes. I mean, the other thing that you sent me was the passive low pass gate. Now this is a brilliant little thing. Yeah, no, I have. This, I mean, I don't know whether I'm using it right. Not having. Just wait till you fade back in again. I'm not sure that I'm using it right necessarily, because low pass gates is not my area of experience too much, but it is something that I know I would like to have. And so this turning up, there's no controls on it whatsoever, I don't think. Oh no, there's a switch. There's a switch.
There's a switch. There's a
switch.
So yeah.
But my understanding of it is that I plug something in. I plug
a very simple switch.
Yeah, I plug something in, I plug in a trigger, the trigger fires, it goes bing, and it just opens it in that Vactrol sort of naturally organic type of way that we like. And for me, it's just, because I'm not a fan of envelopes, I don't get on with envelopes very well. And so having something that just makes it a nice sounding short note is brilliant. It's like it just does it, and I just plug it in and off you go without having to worry about have I set my attack or decay, I've got to worry about linear or exponential. It's like, no, I can just plug it in there and it makes a bing. I'm a fan of that kind of level of simplicity. So I can recommend that.
Yeah, I've been playing. Yeah, I've been playing around with some of the values of the components on that, just to get various responses. But I I think the one that you have is. I think the initial iteration was also the final. It does what it says, I guess.
Yeah, but that's what we need. I mean, it doesn't all have to be massively complex or evolving. You know, I think some of the best modules that you have in your rack are those simple ones that do a specific job. They solve a problem, you know, and it's that kind of module are the ones that I seek out to purchase. You know, I mean, because a lot of my stuff I get things thrown at me, which is lovely, but it doesn't form any kind of plan. There's no. I'm not trying to build a rack. The intention behind the rack gets lost somehow when I've got this to try and I've got this to review and this to do a video on. And so I have a bit of a Frankenstein rack in that regard. But when I'm actually looking to solve a problem, then it's the little modules and the little utilities that just prove their worth time and time again, you know. So it's things like this, things like the Quantizer, things like DivKid's mutes or DivKid's little LFO. Things like that I use all the time, you know.
Yeah, and you can always patch more complexity. Like I also before maybe overly simple modules. I was also using a lot of simple modules in my rack, and yeah, you can always do.
Hang on, I'm just.
I was getting interested in making. Oh, are we okay?
Yeah, no, I'm just going to lower the stream quality a bit because we're getting some bumps. If you just bear with me a second.
Oh no.
It's all right. Just bear with me a second. Okay, we'll give that a go. We should be back up and running again now. So, sorry, yes, you were saying complexity or simplicity or...
Oh, la, 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 la.
We're not having a whole lot of luck, I don't think, with our connection to you today.
No, nor my linguistic abilities either. Like my tongue's doing all sorts of weird dances. I do actually play around with to see what you can do with really simple stuff. So just like a comparator and then a basic input generator, or I mean, is it simple or is it complex? I don't know, but like something like maths is in some ways very simple, but also you can do very complex things with it. And yeah, I find that kind of side of modular really quite interesting. I mean, you can get like some super complex modules as well that are also fascinating. It's just I'm not sure if I can ever work out how to use a rainmaker, for example, or something like that. Like the amount of time that I would have to stick into that.
Yeah. But it becomes one of those things as to whether your interest lies in the patching and the generation of music, or whether it lies in understanding a new piece of technology. You know, I think different people approach it.
I guess so. Yeah.
Want to sit down with a manual and work something out. You know, that can be incredibly rewarding. Not for me,
it really
but it can be.
Yeah, although I figured out how to use the vocoder on the shapeshifter that I bought, and that's all I ever do now is just like talk into the modular and see what comes out, and probably annoy the heck out of my neighbors. But yeah, sucks to be them, I guess.
Yeah.
And keep the volume.
Yeah, I've never fully
So
appreciated
are
vocoders.
you still never fully appreciated what? Sorry.
Vocoders.
Oh no, I think why is that?
I don't know. I mean, it reminds me of a certain type of music, I suppose, which is fine, or
Okay.
it reminds me of 80s
Yeah.
sci-fi, and that's all right. But I can't see of a way that I would ever use that myself, other than
Yeah.
making a joke.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Like I think some of my earliest experiences of electronic music are like Yellow Magic Orchestra and Tonto's Expanding Headband, and definitely with YMO at least there was an awful lot of vocoder usage. So I guess for me it brings back happy memories of listening to some of them.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but
I mean,
it can also verge on the ultimate
yeah. I mean, there's a scene. There's definitely a scene in it.
cheesiness.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a scene. I mean, because Moog recently reissued their nuts $8,000 vocoder, which just makes me scratch my head. You know, it's like whoa. But there's evidently a community of people out there for whom that's a really interesting thing.
There's a big community, I think, of vocoder loving synth heads. I don't know what you call it. Is it Roland? I think are reissuing their vocoder as well. I think it's Roland.
Oh, really?
They may be. That could be a complete fabrication in my mind, or it could be Behringer. I don't know who's doing it. But I think a Roland vocoder somewhere coming out soon.
Yeah.
Like
Could be.
But could be. If there isn't, there should be.
Yeah, but then Roland never listened to anybody. It's not as if Roland sit around thinking, "Oh, what from the past could we really bring back for people?" You know, that they don't seem to have those meetings. They're all well past any concept of modern retro or looking forward, looking back. They're very much future focused.
Yeah. True. But they've made some cracking synthesizers. I mean, that's a huge understatement. Is that still a build that you're working on?
Say that again, sorry. No, sorry, I didn't catch that.
Are you still building your Decad's Dream?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Pulled that out of there. Am I still building my Decad's Dream?
Is that? Were you not building a Decad's Dream?
I am. Yes. Yes. Very much. Yes, I am still doing that. It's on the shelf behind me. This thumb pointing at it. Yes, I am. I'm getting there. I'm at least halfway through, if not closer to halfway, if not beyond halfway through. So I've got the fiddly little bits inside with the hardware breakouts, the in and outs, and then I've got the voice cards, which are the 8 of those to do over and over again. And then it's just going to work. It's going to be brilliant. I'm going to plug it together and it's just going to make noise and it's going to be great. So, yeah. I mean, in fact, at the moment, I've got penciled in next week. I got penciled in next week as being a DIY week. I'm going to try to accomplish a few different bundles of stuff that I've got sitting around that I need to start. So I'm going to attempt to do a Decad's Dream Day and then a Perkle from Bafako. I've got this new the M185 sequencer, which has just been reissued or redone by what's his name? I can't remember. RYK. It's what the Metropolis was based upon. So I've ordered a kit of that, so I'm hoping that that'll turn up in a day or two. Cool. So with a bit of luck next week, that'll be my task. A bit of Decastream, a bit of Bafeco, a bit of an M185, and see where I get to. It's impossible. I mean, I have a day job to do and kids to homeschool, but the intention is that's what I'm going to try to do next week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know there's not enough hours in the day, but good luck.
No, there isn't. But yeah, no, I was talking to Bob from Black Corporation on Monday, and he's very hopeful that I will get this thing to work at the end.
Is there how much of a calibration process is there to go through?
Well, that's a good question, because that's not an area I've looked at all. In fact, yeah. I mean, there's a whole flashing the firmware bit that I haven't looked into either.
Yeah.
So I know I've got to get some kind of ST programmer something from somewhere
ST
that
Link
I don't have.
Thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got to get one of those and do those final bits, and then I have no idea. I'm gonna throw myself upon the mercy of the community to say, so I've turned it on and there's lights. What do I do next? I mean, assuming there's lights, assuming there's lights and not just smoke.
Yeah, I mean that is the nice thing about the community is I think there's an awful lot of support, and you can always find pretty much the exact answer that you need in any of the many forums. I think, like I've learned quite a lot from just like perusing through there, and like GitHub as well, and
yeah. So, did you tell us what you were working on at the moment? You had some things coming along that I can't remember now. It was so long ago.
I'm working on a filter.
That's right,
I'll have to
filter.
see. Yeah, I have to see how that goes. I've got as much as you just said that you don't appreciate envelope generators, but but I'm still waiting for the PCBs to arrive from China. There's been a few delays with the original 2 weeks. But yeah, the envelope generator is going to be a 2-channel, like digitally controlled envelope generator with it's just a tech decay or a tech release that can also be a cloud. And I'm going to throw a few other things in there as well, like some like a ample and hold generator in there, because it's a few of the other envelope generators there, but I think there's ones that I had. It's going to be in 8 HP, 2 channels of that, which for me, a nice size. It's still usable, but quite compact. So yeah, that hopefully I should be testing those out in the next few days. I think I'll get the delivery tomorrow. I'm also working on a new sequencer as well, but to describe it too much, it's probably going to have one big knob and then 4 channels of outputs, and just keep it pretty simple like that.
Yeah, no, that's.
But yeah, we'll see if that becomes a thing. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, it's just making small tweaks to things that I've already been working on for a while. Like I've had a VCO, like based on the Curtis chip for Probably about the last year that I've just been trying to make a bit work on. Like got my hair. It really took it went on the back burner for a bit, just because the Quantizer took a fair bit of programming, and an awful lot of learning went into the Quantizer as well. Like I was doing a lot of things that I did not. Hello? Hello?
Yeah. You're sort of washing in and out, I think, from time to time. It gets a little bit difficult.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's a clock divider as well with um, uh, 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 um, oh, God, that's not how you use a screwdriver.
I like that. He was gone.
Oh, I'm still here.
No, he's still there.
Sorry, I was just bending down. Yeah, so I've been working on this with like selectable divisions. So while it's doing its thing, you can like change this channel to a different thing. And then it's got like a mix output as well. So it sums all of the clock outputs to two different outputs, and then you can mute them. So you can get like interesting patterns of like trigger outputs coming out of this thing. Yeah. I'm totally happy yet with how it's performing, but I'll do some more testing and.
Cool. Well, I think
Has a ton of.
I think we might have to draw this to a bit of a close, because the fading in and out that you have is starting to get a little bit too difficult. I think we're missing a lot of what you're saying, which is a shame, because it's interesting, and we're not getting the full effect. I mean, maybe this is something we can try again at another time. When you have new stuff to show, and we could do it as a bit more of a product demo or something like that. Who knows? Who knows? There's all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah.
But it's getting just a bit too much like hard work trying to work out what is.
Yeah, I'll. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll have to try and figure out. Like, the thing is, I'm paying for a pretty decent broadband connection here, so maybe I'll have to phone the telecoms company and complain to them, because it's just been giving me trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult though, because you're never entirely sure where the problem lies, because is it here, is it during the day, is it my system, is it because I've had technical difficulties in every sort of way so far over these chats. So it's hard, I think. When you're trying to create a broadcast as opposed to just doing a Zoom with your mates, it's a different ball game.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So people who have sat in the chat and watched, I do appreciate your time here, and if you've come and watched this later on, I hope that's been useful to you, having a taster of Tenderfoot Electronics modules. They're modules that I really enjoy. I love let me just bring that web page up again. I love the look and the style of them as well. I think is really good. I like the design of the front panels. They're incredibly useful. They're stuff that I use every day in my rack, and I'm always looking forward to more stuff that you're coming out with, because you seem to have a a way of thinking about modules that is very much in line with how I seem to think and struggle along, in that trying to find simpler ways to solve problems, and trying to do it in an elegant fashion. And that's, I think, what I enjoy about your modules, and I hope there'll be many more to come.
Oh, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, thank you for having me on here as well.
No, that's been great. I really appreciate it. You were immediately on my list of people I wanted to talk to over this period, and we'll get a chance to do this again. So take care of yourself.
Yeah, hopefully with a better connection.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone who's watched. I hope you see us again. Just to let you know that tomorrow, where are we? Wednesday. Tomorrow night I have my last stream in this format, which is with This Is Not Rocket Science. So that'll be tomorrow evening at 8:30, Thursday night. And then I'm thinking about just doing my own stream of myself on Sunday, just so that we can debrief and feedback over how we felt the whole thing went. That might be nice. I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know nearer the time. But otherwise, thanks very much for watching, and we will see you all soon. I've just got to remember how I finish this button thing. Okay, there we go. All right. Cheers. See you again soon.
Yeah, no, cheers. Take care. Bye.